One of the many joys of watching sports these days is that you get warmed over, ham-handed leftist politics thrown in your face all the time. And it is a great joy. The NFL has printed the words "end racism" in the end zone for several years now, for example. It apparently hasn't worked yet because the message is still there. Or maybe racism is solved and they just forgot to remove it. I don't know. In any event, the NFL isn't alone. The U.S. Open just plastered equal pay propaganda all over the court. Major League Baseball even had BLM stenciled on the mound for a while there, and so on. And it's so pervasive and so on the nose that it's enough to make you give up on professional sports entirely. On Saturdays, you might find yourself taking a hard look at, say, third-rate Division III college football games instead. You might think, surely all the social engineering won't be on display there at that level, right? How much of this insanity could have possibly filtered down into a game that no one's watching? Like the matchup between, say Shenandoah University and Juniata College from last weekend. If you've ever found yourself, thinking along those lines, unfortunately, though, we have some bad news. Even the D-list football games, including the game between Shenandoah and that other school that I can't pronounce, have become yet another opportunity for corporate media to tell you that 2 + 2 = 7. They are more grist for the leftist ideology mill that has its tentacles everywhere now. So here's the Today Show to explain the significance of Shenandoah's recent, highly anticipated game that only 5 people watched. Watch.
We're back 7:38 with some inspiring history that was made in college football over this weekend.
Yeah, for the first time ever, a woman played in an NCAA game at a position that was not kicker. Her name is Haley Van Voris, and we cannot wait to talk to her. But first, NBC's Kaylee Hartung has her amazing story. Kaylee, good morning.
Hey, good morning, guys. So after more than 2 years on her college football team without seeing any game action, Haley told me she felt like she was in a movie when she stepped on the field Saturday.
Inspiring history was made. An amazing story. Now, it's important to stop the clip there to note a couple things. First of all, they got the facts wrong. Not that anyone's keeping track, but Haley Van Voris was not, in fact, the first female non-kicker or punter to play in an NCAA game. That honor went to cornerback Taylor Kraut, who played a game for Fitchburg State earlier this year. Nobody remembers that because Kraut managed to make one, quote, assisted tackle before leaving the game. But as long as facts matter, which they clearly don't because the point of this segment is to advance a fraudulent narrative anyway, still, we'll just throw that out there. More to the point, there's another unanswered question, which is this. How does NBC News know that Haley was, in fact, the first female playing in a non-kicking role in a game? Pretending that she actually was that, which she wasn't. But if a female is anyone who thinks they're female, and that's the standard we have to accept or else we're transphobes, and how do we know that dozens of other brave females aren't playing college football right now? How do we know that women haven't already been inducted into the Pro Football Hall of Fame? Has anyone checked with Dick Butkus or Ray Lewis to see if they still identify as men? When the left talks about homosexuality in contexts like this, they usually use the term openly gay. So they'll say that so-and-so was the first openly homosexual person to play football or whatever. But in this case, they're not using that terminology. They're not talking about openly female or openly woman players here. They're not saying that, Haley is the first openly female non-kicking player. They're just flat out declaring that she's the first female player and the first woman. I mean, it's almost as if the left knows that those words have meaning and every now and then they accidentally admit it. I don't know. But back to this history-making game. So let's take another look at why everyone is pretending to celebrate what Haley did. Here's the sum total of her contribution to that game. Watch.
The 5'6" safety came into the game with Division III Shenandoah up 26 points against Juniata College, registering a quarterback hurry on the way to a Shenandoah win.
Did that quarterback know what or who hit him?
I've had some people come up to after the game until I take my helmet off. They're like, dude, I didn't know you were even a girl.
So, first of all, I'm pretty sure they do know. And notice that she doesn't answer the question there. Did the quarterback know what or who had hit him? And her response is, well, I've had people come up to me and tell me they didn't know I was a girl. So this is just speculation, of course, but maybe she's dodging the question because the quarterback knew exactly what had happened there, and maybe he let her know about it. I mean, this woman just ran at him totally unblocked, and then for some reason decided to cling on to him long after he threw the ball to his receiver, and eventually after a couple of seconds, she drags him to the turf, almost like it's happening in slow motion. Now, in any other context, if you don't know anything about football, what you saw in that play there, that is a roughing the passer penalty worth 15 yards. And it's so clear that if it was a man making that same play, a ref who for some reason was standing in the end zone 80 yards away would throw that flag. There would be flags falling out of the sky everywhere if in a situation like that where the receiver's already caught the ball and is in the process of being tackled and you are still trying to tackle the quarterback. That's 15 yards and maybe an ejection from the game, potentially. But that didn't happen to this woman because none of the refs wanted to interrupt the girl power moment here, and neither did anyone else watching it. So everybody just pretended that they had seen something really impressive. And here's how the Washington Post described the footage that you just saw. Quote, "She got through and managed to hit Juniata quarterback Calvin German an instant after he had released the ball on what became an incomplete pass." An instant, they say. Really several seconds. What's the difference, really? I mean, in football, the difference is quite a lot. And they say she managed to get through by simply running straight at the guy unblocked. Now, for his part, sports journalist Dov Kleiman said that this was a groundbreaking moment in college football history. He said, quote, "Haley Van Voris entered the game during the first quarter, immediately leaving her mark with a QB hurry on a crucial third down play." Now, to be clear, again, if you're not familiar with football, just so you know, her team was up 26-0 at the time of this crucial third down play in the first quarter. They ultimately won the game 48-7. There are no crucial plays in a game that ends 48-7, especially not in the first quarter. But who's counting? In fact, there wouldn't have even been a camera crew from ESPN watching this game at all if they didn't think that this gender angle might come into play. But she was put in the game as ESPN expected, and so now we're all supposed to imagine that this was really a momentous, movie-like moment. So here's how the Today Show played up Haley's tackle. Not a QB rush, but a tackle. In their words, watch.
To me, it was just a big moment to be able to crush my own goals and then make a statement for just the football community and, you know, show that women can play the game at whatever level that may be.
So here's where they start to lay the propaganda on a little too thick, and they introduce an idea that isn't just stupid, it's dangerous. Saying, quote, "Women can play the game at whatever level." The NBC anchorwoman agrees and says that later that Haley is overcoming stereotypes that are, held by, I guess, a bunch of troglodytes who don't, quote, "think women can play at this level." Now, before I get into the implications of that, which could very soon lead to a lot of dead women on football fields, it's important to understand the scope of the problem here. Because this is not a one-off incident. College football teams are increasingly promoting the idea that women and men can play at the same level and can be on the field in a violent combat sport together. Also last weekend, a woman named Leilani Armenta was handling kickoff duties for Jackson State. And there were a couple of injuries, so the coaches put her in. And this is for their matchup against the powerhouse players for Bethune-Cookman. And here's how her kickoff went. Watch this.
And here's the story of the day right there. That is Leilani Armenta. And she's going to play and she's going to kick off and maybe even do some field goals tonight for the Jackson State Tigers. Of course, she was on the Jackson State women's soccer team. And because of injuries this week during practice, she's going to get her shot tonight to be a kicker. And what an impressive young lady it's been and a chance for her. And I'm sure she's pretty nervous at this point. But they have her out there and sweat football is underway.
Oh, Lord. First of all, if you turn on a football game and you hear, this is the story of the day right here, and when they say that, you're looking at the kicker doing a kickoff, that already tells you, even if it's a man, that tells you this is a very boring game. If the story of the day is the guy doing kickoffs, and if it's the woman doing kickoff, then it's even worse. So the ball goes 25 yards, which is, and I'm not just trying to make fun of her, it's the kind of kicking that you see on a bad high school JV team. Like it's that level. In fact, it's worse than that. Are you a few years or maybe even decades out of school and wondering, what the heck did I even learn and what was the point? You might think to yourself that you don't have time to learn something new. And if that's you, then know this, you're not alone and it's not too late. Since 1844, Hillsdale College has been providing education in faith, freedom, and character. They've taken some of the core classes they teach on campus and they've made them available for free online for anyone who wants to learn. That's right, it is free. There are 39 free courses to choose from, ranging from the U.S. Constitution, the Book of Genesis, to free market economics. They're easy to follow, and they're self-paced, so you can start whenever you want. In fact, you can start right now. It's everything that you need all in one place with no long-term commitment. Let Hillsdale College be your guide. Learn when and where you want. You can't lose. Go right now to hillsdale.edu/Walsh to enroll. There's no cost. Easy to get started. That's hillsdale.edu/Walsh to register. hillsdale.edu/Walsh. Now, a lot of people went on social media to suggest that maybe it was a bad idea to have a woman attempt this kickoff because it's kind of an obvious point to make. And also, by the way, that is dangerous too. It's not like this is a non-contact position necessarily on a kickoff, especially if you're really bad at doing kickoffs. There's a pretty good chance that the other team's going to have a return, and then you're going to be in a position where you've got, a 6'6", 200+ pound guy running with a full head of steam right at you as the kicker. But again, sports journalists, maybe the dumbest and least original form of journalist on the planet, which is really saying something, jumped into action. So here's how one local reporter named Bradley Davis responded to all the haters online who had an issue with that objectively terrible kickoff. Watch.
All right, now before we go, we need to talk about what happened last night after Leilani Armenta took the field for Jackson State as the first woman to play in a D1 HBCU football game. Now, just like any time a woman does anything in a male-dominated sport, the social media wars, they made sure we all knew that there was a man who could have done it better, and it was just a publicity stunt to take advantage of when the other kickers got hurt. Now, first of all, if you think T.C. Taylor, a true son of Jackson State, who's waited years to get this opportunity, wouldn't run out the player he thought gave his team the best chance to win in his first ever home game as head coach, man, you really haven't been paying attention. Now, maybe it's just harder to do than you think it is, and maybe you didn't take care to look beyond the surface. Leilani played 3 years of varsity football in high school. She made 98 out of 105 extra point attempts in her career. She also suited up when Coach Taylor called despite recovery from ACL surgery. Maybe you chose to ignore that brace she had on her kicking leg. So next time you get mad watching a woman play football because they could have found a man to do it better, go out and kick 105 extra points. Let me know how many of those you make.
Yeah, of course. They just put her on the field because she gave them the best possible chance to win. A woman with a brace on her kicking leg was the best person available. There was no one. We know that's not true. You can just pick any guy on the team. Pick a lineman and just put him out there to kick the ball, and he would at least do as well as that, but probably better. And by the way, they had to go to the girls' soccer team to find a kicker. Do they not have a guys' soccer team? Now, this is not to pick on Bradley Davis. He's obviously a smug guy out there saying what he has to say if he ever wants to advance in the industry of sports journalism. This was his ESPN audition tape. But it's worth noting that he's presenting an embarrassingly bad argument that's typical on the left. First of all, there's no reason for Bradley Davis to be talking about this woman's extra point attempts in high school. She wasn't kicking extra points in the clip we just showed you. She was attempting a kickoff, which requires a lot more leg strength than an extra point to pull off, and she completely failed, and she humiliated herself in the process of attempting that kickoff. It's a pretty significant fact that Bradley Davis somehow forgot to mention, but let's just ignore that for a second. The thrust of this smug reporter's argument is that, first of all, people are only criticizing her terrible kickoff because she's a woman. But if you've spent even 5 seconds around any football fan anywhere, you know that they will viciously criticize any player who screws up that badly. A male kicker who only manages to send the ball 25 yards will certainly be mocked ruthlessly for it. So if you want women to be treated like men, accepted into the boys' club and all that, then it means that they will also be ruthlessly criticized for their failures, because that's what it means to be treated like a man. That's how we men operate. That's how we treat each other. If you screw up, we're going to tell you, and we're not going to be nice about it. So if you really want to be, I'm part of the boys' club, okay, well, this is what it means. You do a kickoff like that, and we are going to mock you endlessly. Now, the reporter also says that unless you can kick extra points as well as this woman, then you should shut up. You're not allowed to have any kind of opinion on this topic whatsoever. What's impressive about this line of argument is what a massive, absurd straw man it is. Because no one is saying that any random guy off the street could necessarily beat this woman in an impromptu extra point competition, only because she's been kicking extra points for years, and most people have never even tried to kick an extra point. The point is that the best women football players at all positions are nowhere near as good as the best male football players at that position, or even the 10th best male football player, or the 50th best. Okay? Like, you take a woman at any football position, at any level, and you will easily find the best woman at any football position, at any level, you will easily find 50, 100, you'd find 500 male football players better than the best one at that position for a woman. And even that is probably underselling it. Now, we know that because there has never been a female player, this woman most certainly included, who can outperform men at a high level of play in a sport like this. We also know it because biology is real, and men have dramatically more upper and lower body strength than women. This is why literally every time they trot out a woman to substitute for a male player in football, it's a catastrophe. You may remember Sarah Fuller. She made history as a female college football kicker a few years ago. She kicked it something like 30 yards, so a little bit longer than this other woman. And the media lied after the fact to claim that it was a planned squib kick, even though it was a situation on the field where no team would ever intentionally squib the ball. Now, in case you've forgotten about that historic kick, it's worth revisiting, including the build-up beforehand, because it's truly a modern classic. Watch.
We are about to witness history in college football. Vanderbilt Commodores coming back onto the field. They will kick off to start the second half, and Sarah Fuller will kick off for Vanderbilt to become the very first woman to compete in the Southeastern Conference in a football game and a Power 5 football game. And there she is, wearing number 32, her soccer jersey number, and just 6 days ago was winning an SEC soccer tournament championship in Orange Beach, Alabama. And wouldn't you know it, history is on the field in Columbia, Missouri, as Sarah Fuller is about to put her right foot into a football, speaking volumes to women around the world.
Awesome moment. You can hear the crowd. Everybody understands what's happening right now. This is a pretty cool moment.
And the kick down at the 35-yard line, and Sarah Fuller. Happy Thanksgiving. What a day. What a day in college football.
What a day. Now, notice how the crowd is really excited and loud, and then they see the kick, and they just go silent. They don't know what to do. They don't know how to respond. Meanwhile, the announcers continue to read their prepared lines like they just witnessed the moon landing. What a day in college football, they declare, after witnessing the worst kick anyone would see until the next time a woman kicked the ball. It's impossible not to notice just how patronizing all this is, by the way. Jackie Robinson is remembered and celebrated not just because he broke the color line, but because he was a truly great player. So when we talk about Jackie Robinson, we're not saying, wow, look at that black player trying his best. Isn't it cute? No, he actually earned the respect that he gets for his play. He's one of the all-time greats. But as the media desperately tries to find their female Jackie Robinson, it never works like this. The girls are laughably awful, and everyone can tell they don't deserve to be on the field. It turns out that, unlike the color line, the gender line exists for a very legitimate reason. Now, Sarah Fuller's historically awful kick was only a few years ago, and now we've already gotten to the point where a college football team actually put a 5'6" blonde chick on the field to play defense. Okay, when the Sarah Fuller thing happened, people like me said that this is where it was headed, and everyone assumed we were joking. A couple years later, they're actually doing it. Now, fortunately for her, the other team didn't pull a guard over to make a block with a head of steam, knocking her in next week. When women are on the field, the players so far have been playing along and kind of letting her have her Rudy moment. But it's not going to stay like that forever. Eventually, one of these guys will treat one of these girls like a football player, and it's quite possible that we'll see a death on the field because of it. And then what's going to happen is the male player will be demonized and have to live with the trauma the rest of his life, when really it's the fault of the school and the media that valued girl power over the safety of the players. This will happen. Okay, even in this modern woke era, the football field is still a place where very big and fast men violently clash. You keep throwing women into that mix, it won't be long before something very bad happens. Which is why, in a sane society, women would be banned from competing against men in violent sports like this. And in the past, no such rule was necessary because nobody was crazy enough to actually put a woman on the field. Now people are that crazy, and so we need policies that reflect that reality. But nationally, of course, everyone is ignoring the reality. Colleges and corporate media are insisting with a straight face that women should be playing football with men. And if you ask any questions about this, sports reporters will lecture you and call you a bigot. This was always the inevitable result of the theatrical game of make-believe that we're all supposed to take part in. The underlying message, as always, is that men and women are exactly the same, no difference, but everyone knows that isn't true. And one thing we've learned time and time again is that eventually, one way or another, reality always reasserts itself, especially on the football field. And when it does, you're not going to like the result. Hey, YouTube, thanks for listening to the show. If you'd like access to my full show with no ads, you should go to dailywire.com and use promo code Walsh to get 2 months free on all annual plans. See you there.